There's a video floating around the internet that stops people mid-scroll. A guy is standing chest deep in a river in Brazil, and a full-grown jaguar swims straight at him. No fence, no cage, nothing between them. And then the jaguar just melts into him, rubbing her face against his, like a house cat that missed you. Her name's Jaguar. He raised her after she was found starving as a cub, years before this video was even filmed. Years later, and she still remembered him. Which brings up a question that sounds easy, but really isn't. Do animals actually remember the people who helped them? Or is it just a smell they recognize? A voice that means food's coming? Turns out, the real answer is way more interesting than either of those. So let's talk about how memory actually works in animals, because most of us have it wrong. Scientists split memory into two types. There's the basic stuff, like knowing fire is hot, and then there's episodic memory, remembering one specific moment with one specific person at one specific time. For decades, scientists figured only humans had that second kind. Then the research started rolling in, and it blew that idea apart. Back in 2006, researchers at Cambridge ran tests on scrub jays, tiny birds, brain the size of a peanut. Turns out these birds remembered exactly what food they'd hidden, where they hid it, and how long ago. That's not instinct, that's a memory of an event. So if a bird can do that, what about the animals we actually think of as smart? Elephants have been seen walking back to the exact spot where a herd member died. Years later, they just stand there, touch the bones with their trunks. Nothing to gain from it, they're just remembering. Chimps in captivity have recognized the faces of other chimps they hadn't seen in over 2 decades, as accurately as humans do. So the memory's clearly there. The real question is whether it stretches all the way to us. In 2013, there was a diving competition at an aquarium in China. A free diver named Yang Yun went down without any breathing gear, just holding her breath. About 20 feet down, her legs cramped up in the cold water. She couldn't kick. She started sinking. And that's when a beluga whale named Mila swam under her. Mila pushed her head against Yang Yun's legs and shoved her straight up to the surface. Yang Yun said later she just felt something nudge her from below, and by the time she realized what was happening, she was already breathing air. Now, belugas help each other out in the wild, so maybe Mila was just doing what belugas do. But here's the detail that's hard to shrug off. Yang Yun had trained with Mila at that same facility for 2 straight years. And Mila didn't push her to the nearest wall. She pushed her exactly where she needed to go. Straight up, straight to air. The strongest cases are always the ones where a lot of time has passed. Because if an animal remembers you an hour later, sure, that's just recognition. But if it remembers you after years and reacts like it's happy to see you, that's a whole different thing. There's a guy in the UK named Damien Aspinall who runs a foundation that raises gorillas and releases them back into the wild in Africa. In 2004, he released a gorilla he'd raised named Quibi. Quibi went fully wild, joined a wild troop, stopped coming near people at all. 5 years go by. Damien decides to go find him. Understand, this isn't the small ape he remembered. Quibi's a 400-pound silverback now, living deep in his own territory. Everyone at the foundation told him not to go, that approaching a wild silverback like that could get him killed. He went anyway, called out into the trees, and Quibi came out. He pressed his face against Damien's, held onto him, sat with him for hours, taking his hand every so often. Then he just walked back into the forest. 5 years of silence, and he still came when he was called. So what's actually happening in the brain here? Researchers at Emory University have studied this for years, and they found something wild. A lot of mammals,
apes, elephants, whales build long-term memories through the exact same brain pathway humans use for their biggest life moments, the hippocampus. And that part of the brain doesn't just store facts, it tags them with emotion, fear, comfort, relief. All of it gets stitched into the memory itself.
So when a starving, injured, or trapped animal gets rescued by one specific person, the brain doesn't just log human, safe. It locks in the whole experience. The fear, the relief, the hands, the voice, the smell. That's why the memory holds on so long. The moment mattered too much to fade. There's a wildlife rehabber in South Africa named Karen Trendler, who's worked with rescued animals for decades. She said something that stuck with me. The sickest animals, the ones closest to dying when they came in, are almost always the ones who react strongest to her later on. She didn't call it loyalty. She said it more carefully than that. She said, it's like they remember the exact moment they stopped being afraid, and they connect that moment to her. That's not the same as recognizing a food source. That's remembering a turning point in your life. And back to that Jaguar from the start. Her owner says she isn't like that with anyone else at the sanctuary. She's fine with other caretakers, but him, she's actually gotten softer with him over time. Not less affectionate, more, which is the opposite of what you'd expect if she was just using him for food. Animals don't get gentler with things they're just exploiting. They get gentler with things they trust. Here's what we can say with real confidence. Big-brained social animals, elephants, apes, whales, some big cats, have memory systems built to hold on to specific individuals for years. And this emotional tagging system in the brain isn't a human invention. It's tens of millions of years old. What we can't say for sure yet is whether the animal feels anything close to gratitude, whether there's a version of, I remember what you did for me, going on inside its head. We just don't have a way to measure that, not yet. But think about this one. Back in 2016, off the coast of California, a humpback whale got completely tangled in a crab trap. Hundreds of pounds of rope wrapped around its whole body. A team of divers spent a full hour cutting it loose, working right next to an animal that weighed 50,000 pounds and could have killed any of them without even trying. When the last rope finally came off, the whale didn't take off. It swam slow circles around the divers, came up to each one at a time, nudged them gently, dove under them, surfaced right beside them. One of the divers said it was the most incredible moment of his life, said it felt deliberate, like the whale wanted every single person in that water to know something. Was that gratitude? We can't prove it. We might never be able to. But it circled back when it didn't have to. Nothing was making it stay. And sometimes that's the only answer you're going to get.